This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview. Joining us today is Rolf Gerritsen, the CEO of MetalNRG. Now, Rolf, when we spoke last time, we talked about a review of 2021, and you set out that 2022 would be a much better year for MetalNRG. So I wonder if you can elaborate on why you think that is, go through the projects that you have and other potential projects you're thinking of, and tell us why investors should look forward to next year.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Look, I think, as I said when we last spoke, 2021 was a tough year, but within that, there were some very strong and some good foundations that were being developed for the company. And if you start breaking that down and start looking at the assets and you say, okay, what's going to come out of those? First and foremost, MetalNRG, we had bad news coming out in November. We're going through a process, which is a process that you have to go through, but we're determined to find a solution. And I think that we will find a solution that makes sense all around, and we'll be able to move forward. So I think though we're expecting that, as I said, to fade away a little bit in terms of the bad news and come to the fore with some further positive news.
Okay, but you're not writing it off. Sorry to interrupt. No.
Far from it. We're a minority investor. We have a position, and there's value in that position. And if you look at our share price today, that value is not being recognized. And part of the reason I believe that investors are not recognizing it is that they don't fully understand the risks that are associated with it. And the risks are not fully understood because we're going through a legal process, and there's only so much I can say. So again, I think more light will be shed on the issues, more understanding will come from us being able to communicate about the situation that will help investors clarify in their own mind what the actual situation is. So I'm hopeful and confident that we will find a solution that makes sense, and more importantly, that the market will fully understand the issues and the implications of it from a financial perspective.
Okay. Good.
Kyrgyzstan, we had elections on the 28th of November. The rumors that have been coming out of the country in the build-up to the election and also post-election is that there is serious consideration to remove the ban on exploitation of uranium. We've always maintained that our project is actually a cleanup project, which it is, because we're taking a waste dump and a waste agricultural fields and cleaning them up and pulling out the uranium from these fields. And when we will have completed the work, we will actually return those fields to agricultural land. But we're confident that there's positive news due to come out probably early in the year. Having said that, we do have a plan B in place if that positive news does not come out. And, we will pursue that as well. So one way or the other, we're going to get next year, we're going to get more clarity on Kyrgyzstan, and we will be able, in my opinion, to see some of that value reflected in our overall share price and the perception that people have of us.
Okay.
The third asset we have is we own 3.8% of LVG, which has a gold deposit in Tanzania. They're progressing work. Frankly, it could offer some upside depending on how things go. Looking at the research out there, everyone's saying that the gold price should pick up from its Groundhog Day of $1,800. So that can bode well. And again, I don't think there's many people that give us any value for that. And I think again it will crystallize over the next 12 months. So again, a bit of news coming out of that. Goldridge, look, Goldridge is a big opportunity, no question. We started off and we bought this asset and not much work had been done on it. We started looking at the waste dumps. Those waste dumps offered us a rapid access to potential cash flow. We then started looking at exploiting that, and while preparing a additional competent report, SRK pointed out that there are other opportunities that would benefit MetalNRG if they were looked at. However, if we went after the waste dumps, we would probably put ourselves in a position whereby we would not be able to go after that larger opportunity. Let me explain how that works. One of the opportunities identified in terms of what was left by the previous operators sits in the waste, in the pillars. And those pillars, if you start taking them out, means that you can't then go and explore further down the line, because you basically collapse it, and you have to then move back. So that's, in a very simplistic term, because in very simplistic terms, is why we're going after the bigger picture and going after the two together. But I do believe that Goldridge offers a huge potential. There's a lot of news flow that is going to be coming out of it. We're conducting something like 1,000 geosamples that will be analyzed, and those results, I think, are going to be very interesting. We have found 35 new reports on the whole area, and Bart has been doing an excellent job in summarizing those, and we started putting some charts together, which we'll be releasing via probably social media, so that people can get a better idea of what I'm actually talking about, and put some context around that. But I think there's some very interesting news flow that's going to come out towards the end of the year. But more importantly, the setup for next year, I think, is quite interesting. What's also interesting is that we're attracting attention in the US, and people are talking to us about Goldridge. So again, I'm very confident that we'll have some very strong news flow coming out of Goldridge, and again, that can only bode well, because the current value that is attributed, if you look at the overall share price of MetalNRG to Goldridge, is pretty low. So I think once we get that moving, that will have a very positive impact. Last but not least, our business partnership with Ecotech, I believe, is going to go from an initial partnership announcement to a first transaction announced, to further developing and taking it from strength to strength. I firmly believe that the whole green agenda is an enormous opportunity. The world needs to put billions of investment money into the whole green area if any country is to get anywhere close to achieving the net zero economies that they're talking about. And the investment required is quite staggering. And with those kind of numbers, you're going to get government incentives. And that will make it extremely interesting and attractive to invest, and will offer good returns. Mm-hmm. Our business partnership with Ecotech can only go, in my opinion, from strength to strength. And next year, we'll see the Italian waste to energy plant being reconnected to the grid. And as I said, I firmly believe that we'll have more, and that will be an area of focus and drive for MetalNRG. And I think all of that will enable investors to start looking at the company from a different perspective, and not just looking at the bad news that came out at the end of the year, and start looking forward and really understanding what we have. Because if you break down the various assets, I've done back of the envelope calculations, and I come up with a very different valuation if I break the assets down to where the market capitalization of the company currently is.
Okay. Obviously, I can't ask you what that would be inappropriate to ask a CEO to give a target. But is Ecotech going to be the early stage cash flow that you're after?
EQTech will be delivering cash flow as of probably we're looking at mid next year if everything goes on schedule.
Okay.
And thus far, it looks like we're on schedule. Everything seems to be moving as per plan. The work is being completed, and they're in process to recommission that plant.
Okay.
And it looks like we're on schedule to achieve the timescales that were set out at the beginning, which is mid-year 2022.
Okay.
So that will produce some cash flows. We also do expect something in terms of positive news coming out of Goldridge, and not only positive but substantial news coming out of Goldridge, which is going to be very interesting. And then we're looking at further developments with EQTech, which also will feed into, because of the kind of projects that we're looking at with them, will feed into the potential for relatively early cash flows.
Okay. And just thinking on the green economy, I think that is going to be massive going forward. We've had COP. You're seeing a lot of chatter around green economy. There are new listings coming on who are companies operating in this space. And a lot of people would argue as well that uranium fits very nicely into the green economy. So just on that theme, how are MetalNRG planning to capitalize? Obviously, you've got EQTech. Do you plan on looking at other green tech opportunities? And also on uranium, if it doesn't work in Kyrgyzstan, are there other uranium opportunities that you would potentially look at, again, to capitalize on the whole green economy idea?
Let me address uranium first, because I think uranium is extremely interesting. I think the asset that we have in Kyrgyzstan is not only uranium and therefore green, but it is also a cleanup operation. It is a number of fields, and historically the uranium mines were up in the mountains. And due to the relatively poor environmental focus in country, a lot of the uranium has dripped down from the mountains, have gone into these peat bogs and have impregnated those peat bogs. And our license, our extraction license, are actually on the fields to extract the uranium from those fields. And then once we've completed the work, is return those fields to agricultural use. So in that sense, there's a cleanup operation, and therefore it's part of the cleanup operation. At the moment, there's still a ban on the exploitation. Our license falls under that ban, but as I said previously, we are looking at possible positive news coming out of country. So we're waiting on that, and if that comes through, great news. That would then open up the door for other opportunities in uranium, not only in country, but also in other areas. So we use that as a stepping stone into countries. At the moment, we're looking at it, but we're saying, let's wait and make sure Kyrgyzstan, we know where we're going with Kyrgyzstan. Once we know where we go with Kyrgyzstan, then we can plan that route, which is very open to us. And we definitely have opportunities that have been presented to us that we'd look at in greater detail. If you then move on to the EQTech story, we're looking with EQTech, we're looking at developing or co-investing in a pipeline of projects. The type of projects that we're looking for are those which are shovel ready and might even have, in most cases, previously being connected to the grid and might even have had premium tariff to which they can from which they can benefit. And that is the kind of projects that we'd be looking at. So that we're looking at recommissioning plants as opposed to building from scratch. And we can then accelerate the recommissioning of those plants to within 12 to 18 months start producing cash flow from the investments that we're making. That's what we're looking for. Let's call that the bullseye. Within and around that, there are other opportunities that we're looking at on an ongoing basis. But I really believe that, from, as you pointed out, the whole green agenda is going to be enormous. I think we're well positioned. EQTech, in terms of their gasification technology and their waste to energy, sustainable energy gasification processes are quite well advanced. They're proven, they're tested, and it's a matter of working with them to start putting money to good use and generating the cash flows that we're talking about.
Okay. Well, Rolf Gerritsen, the CEO of MetalNRG, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.